Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is great to be back on PowerTube TV. Now, tonight, we present a look back at the 2024 Budweiser International Classic at the Oswego Speedway, a 5/8 mile asphalt track set right off Lake Ontario in central New York State that has served as the home of the supermodified since the early 1960s. The 200-lap International Classic is the Indy 500 for the supermodified division, which has seen drivers including Bentley Warren, Doug Didero, Todd Gibson, Joe Gozick, Sammy Sessions, and two-time Indy 500 winner Gordon Johncock all graduate up to Indy cars out of the supers over the years. We'll hear from several of the current drivers, including some of the weekend's winners, and you'll see footage of some of the 800 horsepower, 1,800-pound methanol monsters who competed at the track over the weekend on the Labor Day weekend of this year. Here to help us talk about Oswego, the Supermodifieds, and our Classic is longtime crew member for Abold Racing. And remember, Jeff Abold was our guest last week. Former Oswego Speedway Hoosier Tire rep and knowledgeable insider, Mike Silliman, is with us. Mike, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
And you're wearing a New York Mets hat. You get bonus points for that.
All right.
Okay. So what is in your mind when you think about Classic? What is Classic to you, and what does it mean to the supermodified drivers, teams, and fans?
Well, being from this area and being from Oswego, it's our Indy 500. You know, it's our Super Bowl. It's the biggest event. I mean, we look forward to it every year. We build our season around it. We build our race cars around it. This is the event you want to win if you're in supermodified racing.
Yes, absolutely. It is. Now, let's get to a little bit from this year's race. We're going to start with a couple of interviews that we got on Fast Friday, which is qualifying day for the Classic. And the first interview is going to be with a driver that they call the Hustler, 2021 Classic winner, and the one who had 10 straight top 5 finishes now in the Classic. Here's Michael Barnes. I am standing in the pits at the Oswego Speedway. It is Fast Friday. This is qualifying day for the 68th Annual Budweiser International Classic 200. This is Michael Barnes. Michael has had 9 straight top 5s in the International Classic, including a Classic win, hoping to make it 2 this season. How's it going so far?
Good. The car's been real good. We tested a couple times this week. We won the last regular season show. Feel like we got a lot of good momentum. Car seems like it's been pretty good today, so we'll see what we can do about trying to lay down a good qualifying lap.
You've got a pair of cars here. The car you're driving is actually the older of the two with some latest updates from Joey Hawksby. Can you talk about the differences between the two and why you chose the car you've chosen?
So, I mean, they're pretty close to identical now. We took the older car that I decided to run, put the independent front suspension on it. So it's you know, they're pretty much twins. The shock package is a tiny bit different on this older car. So a combination of that and a few other little things. The car we rolled it out a couple for the last couple of races, and it seemed faster. Car felt like it was a little more under me than this one, so we've just been kind of going that direction with this and just been working on this one.
You've been racing a long time. You came up through the quarter midget ranks, and you've kind of come up the ranks here at Oswego as well, running the limited, now called SBS Supers, and then into the big blocks. Talk a little bit about racing here at the Fast 5/8 of a mile. What's it like, and how does the hub rail, I think a lot of people are going to wonder how the inside hub rail affects the racing here.
Oh, well, it can jump out and get you. It's definitely different. I'm so used to it because, I mean, I hate to say I've been racing up here 20 years, but I've been racing up here 20 years.
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to date you.
But when you go to other tracks, you don't have one. I don't think I've ever raced at another track that's actually had an inside hub rail. So I think it probably for more of the out-of-towners, it's probably more intimidating, if that's what you want to call it. But you know, I mean, racing here, it's a good facility. You know, the pits are laid out good. You know, the track, you know, it's a fast track. It's a, you know, probably a small 5/8. A lot of speed, especially if you run the top wing here. You know, it's a good fast track. It provides good racing. I think the racing here this year has been the best it's been in years. So, yeah, as long as they keep trending that direction, I think the Speedway's in good shape.
A little different package this year. The rear tail wings, they've done some things and changed your one of your tires as well, and it seems to have slowed you guys down. And like you said, the racing's been really good, but the Classic the last few years, the 200 lapper, has been really more of a sprint race. This year, a lot of people are saying it's driver management, back to car management again. How do you see the Classic race playing out?
I hope that's the case. You know, I've said that, you know, the pace of the race the last couple of years, in my opinion, it's been too fast. I think when we had the 13 degrees of wing and the wicker on it, the cars were just so stuck that, not really necessarily that you were burning up your tires, but you still had so much traction you could hold it, you know. And if you still had to manage the car, and if you managed the car right, you just had a much better Classic car than you ever felt, you know, versus the old days when we had, you know, tail wings. So I think this year, I think the pace should be slower. I think guys are going to have to manage their car a little bit. Going out and running as fast as we were running the last few years, I don't see it being there. But we'll find out. When we tested with full fuel the other night and did a lot of different runs, and when I thought I was nursing it, I was actually running a lot faster than I thought. So we'll see what happens Sunday. We'll see what everybody decides to do.
Who helps you make everything happen? You've been driving for Sorel Racing for a long time, but you've had some other people as well that have helped you over the years. Just talk about some of those people who have helped you make it all happen and still do.
Oh, well, you know, first and foremost, my dad. I mean, he's worked on my stuff since the quarter midget days, every team I've ever been with. You know, Gary and Eric, I've been driving for them for 10 years now. Great team. You know, Gary and Eric, you know, they whatever it takes to win, they've had no problem doing, you know, as far as equipment-wise. I've been fortunate to drive for so many good people. Pat and Terry Strong, Billy and Linda Samuels. A lot of people gave me a lot of good opportunities. A friend of mine, Mike Murphy, who passed away a year ago, he used to help me out with tires in my limited days, and he helped me get like my first super ride with Joey Wickham back in 2005. And, you know, Greg Furlong, Pat Furlong did a lot for me in my early days when I kind of made the jump to supers. They gave me an opportunity, which led into the Billy and Linda Samuels opportunity. I just got really lucky, in all honesty, because our family situation, we could never have dreamed of, you know, racing super modifieds and doing anything like that. And just very lucky people believed in me and helped me along, and, you know, got in a situation with Joey Hawksby and Gary and Eric, found a home for the last 10 years, and we had a lot of success, and hopefully we keep going.
All right, that is Michael Barnes. They call him the Hustler for very good reason. Could just be that Michael is the one standing in victory lane after Sunday afternoon's Classic. That was Michael Barnes, and Michael didn't have his best run in the Classic this year, but he certainly did run well. And real quick, in about a minute, give us your thoughts on the Hustler.
He is one of the best open wheel racers in the country. I've said this before, wherever he wanted to go, if he wanted to go midget racing, sprint car racing, Silver Crown racing, even IndyCar racing, I think he could do it. He's just got a feel for a race car. He's just got that natural talent, and he's very intelligent on what the race car needs. And as you can see by those 10 straight top 5 finishes, he knows how to, you know, take care of a race car. You know,
he really does.
He knows what it needs, and he just has a ton of talent, and he's a really good guy too.
Yes, definitely. Okay, now that gives you a glimpse into one of the top big block super modified drivers. There are 2 other super modified divisions we're going to talk about tonight. One of them is the 350 Supers. And we got up to one of the drivers in the 350 division who became the 2024 Oswego Speedway Rookie of the Year. Here's Brendan Young. In the pit area at the Oswego Speedway, we've got Brendan Young with us. Brendan's out of Dryden, New York. That's down kind of close to the southern tier of New York State. And Brendan, first full season of racing here at the Oswego Speedway after racing ATVs for a little while. Unusual path to the oval track 350 Super Modifieds. And we can officially now say 2024 Oswego Speedway 350 Super Modified Rookie of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate it.
Talk a little bit about your season here. First full season, had about 3-4 races last year, and then started this full year. How did you adapt to racing a 350 Super from an ATV?
I had a little bit of car experience way back in the day in the open wheel mic rod, so it was definitely a big change from the ATVs for the last 12 years, but it's been a welcome change. I've enjoyed it a lot. Our season was up and down. We had a few problems throughout the way that, we're learning. We had some things in the car that we should have caught earlier, but we fixed them. We're on pace with almost everybody every week now. Josh and Jeff, they're both going to be real fast this weekend, but we'll see what we can do. Maybe come away with podium. Top 5's our goal, though.
5/8 mile track here. You got a 350 Super Modified. What's the key to success here and keeping control? Talk a little bit about the experience of racing these cars here.
Keep it wide open as long as you can, I guess. I was watching Tyler last night, and he's barely lifting. We're not quite there yet, but just keeping the car underneath you, not making mistakes. Luckily, I haven't really spun out at all by myself this year, which is good. So we got good car control. It's just finding that extra 10th here or there. Not sure exactly what it's going to take. We're trying some setup differences, and we're close, though. So I'm happy with where we're at. Obviously, there's a couple guys that really got it figured out. They've been here a few more years than us, though. So I'm happy with where we're at, but we'll see if we can take the next step.
Race is about double the length of what you usually run, almost, at Oswego on a weekly basis. How does that change the approach and the car and all of that?
For me, I don't think it's going to change too much. It's going to depend on the redraw. If we redraw well, try to get toward the front early. It's hard to pass around here, so as long as we can get out front, got to save the tires a little bit for the last 20, but get out front and just hold your line. It's going to be hard to pass, especially late in the race when everyone's getting loose. So see what we can do to try to keep the faster guys behind us. And yeah, if we get in the top 10, get in the redraw, it's all going to depend on luck.
Who helps you make it happen?
There's a lot of people on this car. We got Tracy Road Equipment. They're our biggest sponsor this year. They've helped me out a ton. KML Transportation, Dryden Hotel. Who else? Brex Towing. They let us go break tires down. He'll paint anything on the car. Helps us out a lot. Everyone on the crew. My stepdad Steve puts countless hours on this thing every week. My dad's here. My mom. My girlfriend Lindsay. The crew guys, Zach, John, Mike Barbera with Top Quality Construction. Couldn't be here without any of them, so I appreciate it all.
That's Brendan Young, 350 Super Modified Regular and 2024 Rookie of the Year in the division here at the Oswego Speedway. And Brendan looking at a different car for 2025 and something that he feels will be a little bit more competitive in that division. And again, in about a minute, Mike, the 350 Super is a fairly new division the last few years at Oswego, but very popular in New England. Talk a little bit about the 350s and what your impressions are of them.
Yeah, it's a great division. I mean, it's been around actually in New England for 25 years at least. I mean, Bobby Santos was started in one of those when he was like 13, 14 years old. I think it's great around here. We need to build the car count. Right now they've got some issues with, rules as far as different tracks and doing different things. And that's something for another show, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But as far as that class, is very competitive. It's bringing in a lot of young drivers like the Hawksby boys, Brendan Young, Josh Sokolik, who's moving right up through the ranks real fast. And I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting, but I would like to see that class grow a little quicker, but it is growing. And I think it's going to be a strong class in the next couple of years here at Oswego.
Yeah, I agree with you. And with that, we're going to step aside, back with more after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system, Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show. This segment is always brought to you by Ultimate QM. Remember, if you are looking to get your son or daughter into motorsports, quarter midgets might be the way to do it. They have local, regional, and national series around the country, and even NASCAR has its own series for the quarter midget cars. The Ultimate QM quarter midget is built right here in Mooresville, North Carolina, not 10 minutes from where we are sitting here in the Steering Wheel Nation studio. Andy Loden is the builder of those cars. His son, Nick, has won over 180 quarter midget races and has gone on to success in late model cars. And you can see that there are winners all over the country who are on Ultimate QM chassis for the best in not only the car itself, but service, parts, coaching, setup help, all of it. Winners win with Ultimate QM. Visit them at ultimateqm.com. Mike Silliman is our guest, and we are talking about super modifieds and the Budweiser International Classic at the Oswego Speedway, and the 2024 edition specifically. But I want to go back in time for a bit, Mike. You and I both started going to Oswego as young kids in the 70s. But the history of the classic started way before that, in the 50s. What do you think about when you think about the history of the classic? What comes to your mind?
It just reminds me a lot of what's happened at Indy. I mean, you look through the history books and, there's so much about that. And Oswego really coincides a lot with Indy. As our Indy started in 1911, a lot of the stuff that, race cars that came through Oswego in the early days were former Indy cars. And a lot of the technology then and now is still coincides with Indy. And our big race is the 200 lap race, just like Indy. But, you look back from where it started, with the stock cars, and, we had those for a few years. And then, Gordon Johncock and Art Bennett showed up from Michigan. And
early 60s.
And for the 1961 Classic. And that changed everything forever. I mean, from then on, we were a super modified racetrack. And, those guys were the two that started. Unfortunately, we lost Art this past summer, and
yes,
Gordy's still going strong at 88, and but working every day and cutting logs and trucking and stuff. But just those early pioneers, and you think about it, and the way it's developed all the way up through with the uprights, and then going into the Indy Roadsters that actually came in for a while, and then that developed into rear engine cars, 8-inch offsets. And there's just so much history,
Well, and the names, like I talked about at the top of the show, and you think about, Gordy, John Cock was one of the pioneers of super modified racing, especially at Oswego, and then went on to win 2 Indy 500s and had a great career at Indy. And then you mentioned the Indy Roadster revolution at Oswego in the late 60s. Todd Gibson, the Flintstone Flyer, was kind of the one that ushered that in. And then he himself got to go race Indy cars for a couple of years. And Todd was one of the best to do both. I mean, you think about the drivers that have advanced from Oswego to IndyCar, a lot of them obviously decades ago, because now IndyCar has become road race specific, unfortunately. So, the path just isn't quite the same. But you think about some of those drivers, and you think about the history of the race itself. I mean, it's grown into really what is the Indy 500 of the East.
Exactly. And here you go back to that, about Gibson, Bentley. I mean, it started back in the 60s, and Ronnie Lux had such a great season in 65, and that sprung him to a USAC career with a tested Indy and a chance to qualify that year, which he didn't qualify in 66. Unfortunately, he lost his life later that summer. And then Gibson had that huge year with 13 wins at Oswego in 68. And the next year he was in USAC. And then Bentley with the great year in 69 and win the Classic. And that got him a ride at Indy the next year. So, back then they were looking at that. Oswego was the place. And that's how, I think they got the name the Indy of the East. And they had a lot of great drivers coming out of here.
They did. And of course, the supers of that day, 60s, 70s, were open competition. I mean, basically it was almost anything goes. And so that's how the Indy Roadster, you had Gibson with a front engine Roadster, you had Freddie Graves with an old Mario Andretti rear engine car that he qualified on the pole with at Indy, I think in 68, actually. And Freddie ran that in the early 70s. There was so much difference in the cars back then, and that's really what again, as you say, it kind of paralleled Indy because there was always that innovation and somebody trying something different back in those days, and the super modifieds kind of followed that same trajectory, if you will. And so there was a lot of sort of symbiotic relationship between the supers in Indianapolis.
Yes, definitely. And it still is, we got away with it, 80s and stuff. But I mean, if you look at supers now, I mean, it's basically looks like an Indy car with a big block.
It does.
Stuffed out the left side.
Yeah, it's ironic that they're now basically mini Indy cars, but it's not easy to get from a super to Indy car because everything's so road course focused.
Yeah.
We had a driver back in the mid 90s who was from Oswego, New York, hometown boy named Joe Gozick. And Double O Joe, at 68 years old, still racing super modifieds and still competitive, and competed this year in his 45th International Classic 200. I had a chance to catch up to him on Sunday before the race got started. Let's check out the interview with Double O Joe Gozick, a driver who's as old as the race. I am standing in the Oswego Speedway pit area with a driver who is as old as the International Classic race itself, and I say that with the highest degree of respect. Joe Gozick, otherwise known as Double O Joe, this is your 45th International Classic start coming up. Can you put into words how it feels to have been able to race here at Oswego for 45 years?
Well, I don't know. When I first started out as a crew member, I probably never even imagined being able to race here, let alone, race for as long as I have. So, it's just a passion for it since I started back in 1980. And, the background I got from Steve Joya and other people, Tony Osetic, put me in the right place to understand the cars and be successful after time. It took time, but, it's hard to imagine that I've been here that long. I just... every year you approach it like I always have. You have that passion to get up here and compete. And as long as we're competitive, I'm okay with that.
You've really accomplished a lot. I mean, when you think about it, being 68 years old, you've run here for 45 years. That's almost half a century. You've been to Indy and actually qualified for the Indy 500. You've done a lot of racing around the country in different types of cars, open wheel cars particularly. When you think about your career as a whole, pretty amazing to think about that you've been doing it this long and been able to do all that you've done.
Yeah, I've been blessed all over, like you said, many different opportunities, people all over the country that, believed in me, gave me rides, the experiences we've had everywhere we've gone, every racetrack when we traveled all those years. It's hard for me to think back, that I've been doing it that long. It's something you just planned on doing every year, and now it's 45 years. I'm like, where did the time go? And I still enjoy it. We got an older gang, and maybe we might not have the top equipment, but we're competitive, and as long as we get competitive, I'll keep going. We'll see how much longer.
Picked up a couple heat wins this year, and you have been more competitive, it seems like, for the most part. But let's talk about the International Classic. Tell us how your car is, and what are you expecting out of this day?
Well, we've been on a high the last 5 races, so we've got the car underneath me, which makes you look better, which gives you confidence, and lets everybody look forward to the next race. At the beginning of the season, I'm not so sure I would have looked forward to the season or coming here every week, because when you're down and out, you're like, should I be doing this? But we've earned it. We've got stronger, and we've been competitive in the last 5 races where we've been a legit top 8 car or so. So today I'm hoping to expect the same, that we can run in that second group of cars or even up front, who knows. But just be there at the end and be competitive is what we're looking for today. The cars seems really good, but who knows? A full load of fuel, it's kind of hard to understand because it waddles around out there, with all that load. But when that burns off, it'll see who's got the better car and who can get the job done at the end.
Feels like this is going to be more of a driver race this year than it's been in the past. It's been a sprint race lately, it feels like, even though it's 200 laps. This year, this feels like it may be more like when you first started racing, you've really managed the car over the course of the 200 laps and manage the tires.
Yeah, you definitely have to do that. You can go bonsai first 50 or 100, and then you won't have anything left later. So, I guess it depends on what your car does and how you feel comfortable as far as how far you want to go forward or back. You don't want to back up if you don't have to, but you got to try to manage the car and hopefully get rid of the fuel, and then you can go race.
Joe Gozick, 68 years old, still probably could beat up half the pit area here at Oswego Speedway, and out for another International Classic victory here today. Okay, You've known Joe as long as I have, Mike, probably longer, actually. And you've raced when you were working with Pat, and of course now Jeff races against him, but Pat Abel, Jeff's dad, it was Pat Gozick for a couple of years at Oswego in the 90s. Give us a minute about Double O Joe and just the longevity. It's really incredible, honestly, to watch this.
Yeah, now that I think he's lying about his age, because we'll go down to the gym and he'll do a hour workout in a high intensity class and jump out and then get into a spin class for an hour and kick all our butts,
Yeah.
And no, he's incredible. He's incredible. He's always kept himself in great shape, kept himself sharp, But yeah, the thing was, he didn't race anything before a super. He jumped in when he was in his early mid-20s.
Yeah,
come from a crew member, learned the craft, took a few years, and just had a great career. I mean, it was fun, watching him. Then we're competing against him, and him and Pat had some great races together.
They did,
and they would bring out the best in each other. At times, and then just watching him develop, and then now Jeff racing with him. So it's been, I'm sure it's been quite a journey for him, and it's going to be sad the day he does finally hang it up. But
yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't feel like that's coming soon either. I thought maybe, not maybe next year. This year would be his last, but I don't think he sounded like a driver who was ready to come back in 25 and keep going, and that would be pretty incredible. I think he'll race till at least 70 years old. I mean, you gotta, Bentley did, so Joe has to, right? That's how that works, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. But Joe Gozick, 68 years old, and finished top 10 in the 2024 Budweiser International Classic. We are gonna step aside. When we come back, we have got more with Mike Silliman and more conversation about super modifieds here on the Tom Baker Show. We'll be back right after these words.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show. Mike Silliman is our guest. Mike is a part of the Abold Racing Super Modified crew at the Oswego Speedway up in central New York. And we've been talking about the track's biggest race, a race that is known as the Indy 500 of the East, the Budweiser International Classic, now 68 years old as of this year. But again, we mentioned that there are 3 different divisions of super modifieds: the big blocks, which are just called super modifieds, the 350 supers, and the SBS division, which formerly was known as the limited supers. It is those 2 divisions we talk about in this segment, and going to have a winner view from each of their 2 classic races as well. Mike, 350 supers, as you mentioned before, started in New England, and I think it was a bit of a reflex reaction to try and find a version of a super modified that wasn't quite as expensive and maybe more accessible to more different people. And it worked probably a little too well up there, because it basically replaced the big block supers as a weekly division in New England back in, I think, the 90s, maybe 80s.
Yeah, it was probably the late 80s, late 90s, early 2000s. And, we saw it coming. We went to Star that one year, and it's like, you couldn't tell much of a difference between the 2. Yeah. And I remember one of the guys, it might have been Randy Whitcomb at the time. He ran 350s all year, put a big block in his car at the end of the year, threw some bigger wheels on, and ran Star Classic, So it was a neat, it was a class where you could go from a 350 to a big block at that time with some changing over. And we've seen that at Oswego, because a lot of the cars that were big blocks are now 350s.
Yes.
So it's not, it is feasible, not like the small block class that we have, once you're there, they're on an island with that race car,
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that, but I think that's been a great class for Oswego also. But
it has.
The 350s, it's growing, and now you look at it around the country. Ohio's got a decent group of cars. Star has a group. The SMAC series, Oswego.
Yep.
I mean, if you could get them all together, you'd probably have a race with over 40 cars there.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And for those in our audience wondering what's the difference between them, well, they each have their own little sort of motor configuration that's slightly different. Oswego and the Star group in New England are kind of aligned as crate motor classes. The SMAC Tour runs more of a built kind of motor, small block motor, and the Ohio series, the Outlaw group there in Ohio in the Midwest, is kind of almost a compromise between the 2. They have a crate motor, but changed the cam just to make them a little faster, add a little horsepower to the mix. But at Oswego, the only motor configuration that's allowed is the one that Oswego and Star use, which is the crate motor. So it is hard to get them all together in one place. Now, one of the things the 350s have been great at over the years has been to produce new drivers for the big block supers. Now, Jeffrey Battle has won now 5 Bud Light 350 classic races at the Oswego Speedway and debuted a big block super for the classic this year. Unfortunately, blew the motor up before they ever got to start the race. So Jeffrey did jump in the 350 and again took his 5th win in the Bud Light 350 class. We caught up with him. Here's Jeffrey Battle. Standing in the pits at the Oswego Speedway. This time, I'm standing with the winner of the Bud Light 350 Super Modified Classic. It is, I believe, the 5th time that Jeffrey Battle has taken the victory in this race. You and your brother Ryan had a pretty cool battle toward the end of it, and Ryan actually got you on a restart before a caution came out and sent him back. Talk a little bit about that race.
Yeah, it was a good race. I think I've been learning the restart procedures from every track and series I've been running lately, and they've all kind of are a little different, to be honest with you. And I kind of, out here, it seems to be the initial start is on green on the race control, but after that it's on the leader. So obviously it is what it is. What happened, you know. It all kind of worked out for us in the end. I think at the end of the day, we had a really good car. So if it stayed green, we could have hopefully been able to get back by him. But he did a great job, and after the weekend they were having.
You and Ryan both had a great day, and you again win for the 5th time. What's the secret here? I mean, Josh Sokolic was fast, but it didn't look like anybody had anything for you today other than maybe your brother. Yeah, Josh has been very good. He obviously runs out here every week. So for us to come on out, this is our 2nd time out here this year, it definitely makes it more difficult to stay on top of the track changing. And obviously we change our car a lot at home from week to week. So you kind of don't really know what you got till you come back out here. So in a way, I feel like we're always a little bit behind the 8 ball, but we have a pretty good baseline to come out here and work with, and we know what the car likes as far as for changes, for certain changes, how the car reacts to it. So we seem to execute well, I think is a good way to put it. You were running a big block earlier this week. You planned to make your first start in the Budweiser International Classic 200, which as we stand here is coming up next, but blew a motor in that one, which was a tough break. Might we see you a few times next year to kind of get dialed in here with the tail wing and set for next year's Classic with that? Yeah, that's kind of, I imagine that's going to be the plan. We were hoping to get out here at least once or twice for this weekend, but it didn't work out for us, and obviously this weekend didn't work out well. I think we were getting a decent handling on the car. I was getting very comfortable in it. So we'll see what next year brings. But for now, we got a couple more races back at home, so we'll finish off the year back at home and get ready for next year. Who do you want to thank? Oh, I got to thank Uncle Rich for doing all this. This is my 6th year racing, so obviously I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for him. I was racing like a Ironman car a few years back, which was it's a 2.6 liter front wheel drive car. So to be doing what I'm doing is definitely a privilege. I never would have thought I'd be racing the way I've been racing, and without him, none of this would be possible. And obviously Whitcomb Crane, which is his business, Essex Seafood, the West family, RJ Lacombe, Septic, New England Motor Racing Supply, and my whole crew. One of the top young drivers in the super modified division, whether it's 350 or now big block, Jeffrey Battle, going to be looking for a full season of big block racing in 2025. And that was Jeff Battle. And again, Jeff and his brother Ryan, Mike, 2 of the top drivers in the 350 division, and both have been in big block supers and both have done really well. In fact, Jeff got a win in the New England Super Modified Series here just recently. Again, 2 really talented young racers.
Yes, definitely. They're very, very talented, and they're very good kids too. And they're both going to go far in racing. Whether it's, with the 350s, I can see them both getting into big blocks eventually.
Yes.
And wherever that'll take them, or if they go, the modified route or whatever. But I think either one of those kids can go as far as, the sky's the limit with either one of them, depending how
I agree.
The funding is, now it's all about funding, of course, but, they've got some good people behind him with Uncle Rich and Uncle Bobby and the whole Whitcomb family,
Yeah, one of the great families of super modified racing for decades back. So yeah, Jeffrey doing a nice job, and you're right, he does also run a modified as well. Okay, let's quickly jump to the SBS division, which is small block super modified. It was called a limited super when they first brought it out in the early 90s. This was a division that was brought out, and they were sort of an IMCA modified frame or chassis. And they wanted an alternative so that we didn't have a bunch of big blocks dropping down into the limited class. Mm-hmm. And this produced a lot of drivers up into the big block division over the years, and some of the best ever coming from the SBS division. And right now it is an Oswego only division with a New York State tour. Talk a little bit about the SBS cars.
Well, I am a big fan of them. I always have been.
I am too.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. The SBS class saved the Oswego Speedway. That build up. The Carusos were very smart when they did this class and built that car like it is, and not an old super modified. Which a lot of people said, why don't we just use up these old supers? Well, you do that, and you're going to have the same effect you had at Star, and you'd probably be a 350 class right now. So, I mean, it was a great move by them, their foresight and the vision, seeing, what it would eventually do. And it's produced such great talent. That's run super modifieds in Indy Oswego Speedway, Otto Sitterly, Greg Furlong, David Gruel, the Bond brothers. We could go on all day. With the talent. And, the guys that are still running now, you got some great drivers there. So they put on a great show. I've worked with them with the tires for the last 14 years. And like I said, it's a great bunch of guys, great class. So I'm a big fan of them. I always like to watch them, and when we can. So, but yeah.
And Sean Goslin is a young driver who was born and raised in Oswego, graduated from quarter midgets up to big block supers, actually got to victory lane a couple times, and then kind of got away from big block racing, came back with an SBS car that Greg O'Connor owns and put it in victory circle. Here is the winner view with Sean Goslin after this year's Bud Light SBS Classic. Standing in the pits at the Oswego Speedway, our second big race winner of the day. That is Sean Goslin, the winner of the Bud Light SBS Super Modified Classic. Sean, you got a classic win at the Oswego Speedway, and it was a pretty dominant performance. Talk about that one.
Yeah, just like I said before the race, I was just going to go out and drive as hard as I could every lap, and that's what I did. So had a couple breaks go my way early on, and I was able to take up a couple early positions and then just kind of rode it out and took what the race gave me and hammered down.
Yeah, Brad was doing a nice job till he broke, and then eventually you got the lead and looked like you just kind of easy sailing from there.
Yeah, I was really contemplating what to do on that restart. Didn't know if I should tuck in behind Greg or take it on the outside, and I decided I'll go the outside. One of us will be in the lead in the first turn, and just as soon as the green dropped, I put my foot down, and we were out front. So.
Thought you might have a 1-2 there for a while, but unfortunately that didn't quite work out the way that you would have planned it. But you certainly had a great performance. What's it been like racing this SBS car after running the big block super modifieds for several years?
These SBS cars are they're really, really fun to drive, and I think they're competitive and they put on a good show. And the people, the people here running the SBS and the people running the big blocks are just great people all around. So just really enjoyable to be able to come out here and race at Oswego Speedway.
How did this come about for you to drive this car?
Last year, so I ran it last year. I think I was like plan C or D to run the car, and it just kind of happened to work out. And,
bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, and then I was lucky enough that the O'Connors asked me to drive it again this year, and here we are.
Well, you did well enough last year that I certainly would have thought they would have asked you, and you've won twice now. I mean, the first time you were a little bit light at the scales, but this time I guess you had enough beer last night to give you the extra weight you needed, right?
Yeah, no, we've scaled it a couple times, so we were pretty confident in that. Yeah, the first race was just unfortunate. I call it, early season troubles that we happened to discover, the second biggest race of the year. But those things happen and we move on, and at least we proved today it wasn't a fluke. So.
No, definitely not. Okay, so what are your plans for next year? Will you come back to defend?
Yeah, I don't have any plans right now. I was just focused on today, but yeah, if anyone wants me to drive their car, I'd be happy to.
Who do you want to thank?
I just got to thank the O'Connors. These guys work super hard, and just you can't ask for a better family. And my family, my parents were out here. My wife and kids came out from Illinois, so it's tough on everybody. But they, let me do this a couple times a year, and couldn't be more blessed.
Sean Goslin grew up coming to Oswego like many others, and now his dream has come true. He has picked up a Classic Day victory at the Oswego Speedway. And Sean Goslin now living in Illinois, I believe, and he loves driving that SBS car, and he's a perfect match for it. He's been in it twice this year. He's won twice. He got disqualified once for being light at the scales, about 3 pounds, but Great job by Sean Goslin. More from the Classic after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV. Having a blast talking about my home track, the Oswego Speedway up in Central New York, and their biggest race of the year and the biggest super modified race of them all, the Budweiser International Classic. We've heard from some of the drivers, some of the ones that have won. We've got the actual Classic winner, Tyler Thompson, a Victory Lane interview to get to here in a bit. Mike Silliman is our guest. Mike has been around the Speedway as long as I have. He is a way better mechanic, a way better tire guy, and we both have fun doing kind of the history thing online in the super modified groups. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the history of the Classic. You've experienced Classic from almost every way you can, except for behind the wheel of the car. Okay. As have I, but you've done tires. You've had even more than me. What I always, when Classic gets close, even though I live in North Carolina now, when it's Classic week, I can feel it in my bones. What's it like for you, the build up to the Classic, and what have you experienced over the years in your different roles?
Well, as a kid, it was always exciting, and you see the campers starting to come in town, and you go out to the track, and you walk the campgrounds, and you meet, you see people that you meet once a year, and those people have become longtime friends, and are still friends, that we met as kids, So that was always exciting, and then standing there with watching the open trailers come in and seeing all the different cars that you haven't seen all year, or you didn't see, Paul Strasser coming in, or Howie Brown, or Ali Silva, or Gary Kelly coming in from Texas, or these little rear engine cars that show up from British Columbia. So as a kid, it was always exciting with that, and what that and the excitement building up. Becoming on a race team now, that has a whole different level,
It does.
You're thinking about that from day one, when the season starts, it's basically the countdown. It's always on your mind. You're thinking about that. You've got to have the biggest thing with Classic, and it comes down to it, is fuel and the fuel load. I mean, no other class of race car will run that kind of fuel for a race. The Indy 500, the difference with them is they make 5, 6, 7 fuel stops. We don't have the luxury of that, and so putting extra fuel cells on the car safely, the stress of, okay, can we make it, we do that, if we place it this way, being a racer, okay, maybe we had too much left side last year. We want to put more fuel in the front, or we want to put more fuel in the rear. So requires more building and changing and stuff like that. But you're as a crew, it's always the countdown, and it's always in your mind thinking about it, and that race will make or break your season. 1992, we won 9 races, the track championship, and broke in the Classic. And after that, it was like, okay, that wasn't great of a season, but you can have a terrible year and win the Classic, and, that's the pinnacle, Look at IndyCar racing. You remember who won the Indy 500 and who won the other races this year. It's kind of, you got to look it up most of the time.
Exactly. Yep.
So that brings it another level, and especially when that last race ends, it used to be the week before. Now it's 2 weeks before, and it's, okay, this season's over. Now we focus on this race. It's 100% focus. and trying to get everything in, get your maintenance nights done, what days you're going to, everybody's testing now. So we like to pull an early test like Monday, Tuesday. And that way, then we have time to, repair anything or make changes, stuff like that. But just trying to fit everything in the whole week, it's a very stressful week. And then, you're thinking about the race, but then qualifying, you want to go for the pole. So you're putting a qualifying setup in. You work on that. You go Friday with the only thing is you want to go fast. Once you're done with that, Saturday's the changeover day, and Sunday you just want to finish 200 laps, but you got to be as fast, but you got to keep tires on the race car, be able to not run out of fuel, use the fuel up, so there's a lot goes into it, as far as that. If it was me, I'd rather be the kid again that just goes up and watches, but and, they would talk about the tire standpoint when we're, doing the tires, and still like this past year, I was still doing the ordering and everything for that. And just trying to figure out for how many cars we're going to have, 30, 32, 36, how many we can get, how many tires can get done. If you're done building tires, getting the shipments in on time. And has really been a challenge the last few years. With, the last few years, stuff coming in late. This year, I think all our right fronts came out on Thursday, afternoon. So that's another challenge in itself. So trying to do that and the race car was really nuts.
I bet. But, it's just crazy stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. But, on the whole, I'd like to be that person someday who's just the fan again. And go up there and hang out on the campgrounds. I haven't seen the campgrounds in probably 20 years. Classic week.
They're still there. They're still there.
Yeah, they're still there. So, but being that fan and walking there and sitting around the campfire and talking trivia and, bench racing and stuff like that. A lot of people do that. And that's one of the things I do enjoy is, after the races, we're there, whether, good day, bad day. A lot of people coming in the pits that you haven't seen all year again, and
it is a social event, and it's almost like a family reunion at this point. Okay, let's get to the winner view, and then we'll talk about the race that led to this. Tyler Thompson is second Budweiser International Classic victory. Here he is. Tyler Thompson wins his second Budweiser International Classic at the Oswego Speedway here this afternoon and this evening. Rain shower interrupting the race for a little while, but we finished it. Tyler, you told me earlier today you were going to sit back and just ride a while, kind of let the race come to you, and then they throw the green and you're running second for basically most of the race, so you took the lead. I'm not sure you fell back out of second the entire race. Was that your idea of conservation?
No, actually, because these tires have been really, really goofy all year, and we usually get about 70, 75, 80 laps out of them, and then we can really see like a decrease in the tire. And we were just going to try to save, as much tire as we could to the end, but it was a pretty fast pace from the start.
It was.
And it just didn't slow down, so we had to take advantage of it.
So talk a little bit about, as the race went on, was your plan to get the lead when you did, or was it just the opportunity because traffic really made that race exciting?
Actually, a few laps before the rain came and we had that red there, I was on attack mode already, and the rain stopped that. But after the red there, we knew once we went back out, it was time to go.
Okay, so I know you can't do all this by yourself, so who would you like to thank who helped you make it happen?
I have to thank my dad, my mom, I have to thank my girlfriend, I have to thank my little brother, and also my little sister. I have to thank Doug, Dave, Mike, Joe, Don, Max, Ashley Lynn Winery. I have to thank Hammond Auto and just everybody else who helps out on this race car.
Okay, so you told me earlier that we'll see how it goes this afternoon and then see what else I might want to race. Now, you've got your second classic win.
Yeah,
Are we doing any other racing this winter or not?
We will definitely be doing the indoors there with the midgets. We weren't planning on doing anything else I mean, with a big car, but now I might change a little things. Yeah, it would.
Congratulations on win number 2 in the Budweiser International Classic, Tyler. That was Tyler Thompson. And again, Tyler, one of the top open wheel racers in the country. He's as comfortable on dirt as he is on pavement. He's been to the Chili Bowl. He looked really good there. The kid runs TQ midgets during the winter. It's amazing what Tyler does. But this race, you talked about strategy, fuel, tires, all of that. We expected this year with the tires and the new wing configuration on the tail of the Supers that this was going to be a kind of management sort of race, save the car, save the tires. And Otto Sitterly, who's won about 6 of these things, decided he wasn't going to wait around for anybody to save anything and took off. And it led to, I think, a whole different race than anybody thought. You got about 2 minutes here. Talk about your impressions of this year's race and how it worked out.
Well, congratulations to Tyler. He did an amazing job, and he did
really
save
did.
his car. He's really matured on and off the racetrack, and he is a great talent. The big thing that happened was the rain.
Yeah.
I mean, that cooled the tires down. That changed the whole game right there. You had tires, 80, 85 laps of heat, track conditions changed, all the rubber was washed off. That just threw a whole monkey wrench in everything. So pretty much for there, it was going to be, you're driving it. It's, it's more driver than anything then. And, Tyler he was the man that day,
Yeah.
Otto was a little too tight, it looked like, and Tyler got the lead. Bobby Santos was coming on at the end. He ran out of time. Michael's car just didn't seem like it was there, They were just off a bit, and, they're in the top 5. But, it was a really good race. It was a really strange race. With everything that went on between that and then, we had the fire we dealt with. So, but, other than that, it's a classic. You can never predict. I mean, as much as you think it's going to go this way, it's going to go that way.
Yeah.
I mean, who would ever thought Jimmy would lead all 200,
Jimmy Champagne. Yep. The only driver to ever do that.
The only one to ever do that. And sometimes it's like Swifty used to hang back for a while. And in 72, he took off early. Nobody ever and won it. So, the thing is, it's always different.
It is, and that's what makes it so much fun. Okay. Great to have you on, Mike. Always fun to talk classic. We'll do it again next year and hopefully get you on before, and we'll do a little preview of the 2025 Classic. Thanks for coming on with us. That is Mike Silliman.
Thanks for having me.
And want to just tell you real quick before we close this show, the 3rd annual Winter Showdown at the Auburndale Speedway in Auburndale, Florida is going to happen February 5th through the 8th of 2025. Again, the TQ Midgets, and Mike Silliman's familiar with those too. Headlining 3 days of racing that also includes the Legend cars and the Bandoleros, and we got at least one more division to be announced, plus fireworks and a whole bunch of other fun stuff throughout the week. So watch for more announcements about this event on our show. We'll have interviews with some of the TQ midget racers coming up as well. And that's going to close it out for this week's Tom Baker Show. For more exclusive content and stories, join us on steeringwheelnation.com and, of course, on our 24/7 streaming page on the WatchPowerTubeTV.com platform. Visit tracktune.live to check out how you can sign your track or series up so fans and teams can hear all the PA action right through their phone or device. Check out ultimateqm.com for all the info on how to get your young one started in quarter midget racing. Remember, winners win with Ultimate QM. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Wheel Nation or Steering Wheel Nation on LinkedIn. And of course, if you want to look me up on LinkedIn and follow my personal page, it's Tom Baker Media. And that's it for this week's show. Up next, more great programming here on PowerTube TV. Until next time, I'm Tom Baker. Thanks for watching The Tom Baker Show. Have a great week.
Thank you.